Are we
Hello,
live?
everyone. How are you?
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome. Rania, are you here with us?
Hi, everybody.
Hi. It's great to get started. Let's switch for a second to being able to see all of us. There we go. There we go. So, welcome everyone. It's really great to have you here on this Friday evening here with Rania Matar. I'm Mia Dalglish. I'm one of the co-curators at Pictura Gallery. This is Lisa Woodward, other co-curator, and then our very special guest, Rania Matar. And cheers, ladies.
Cheers.
Cheers. So happy that we can all be here together.
Cheers.
Yes. So, and welcome to all of you at home. We are so thrilled to get to take a little peek at this new project that Rania is working on right now that we're going to hear a little more about, and also just get to see her studio and know a little bit about her process as a photographer. Rania is a Lebanese-American photographer. She's based out of Boston. She was a 2018 Guggenheim Fellow, and she has made lots of just wonderful, wonderful projects. We have gotten the pleasure of getting to kind of see those evolve over time. And so what we'd really like to do, though, is hear about the project you're working on now, Rania, which has to do with the whole quarantine situation. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about it, and then maybe we can see a little bit of your other work. And
Okay. So, hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Mia and Lisa and everybody at Pictura for organizing this. The work, I mean, the slideshow I have organized shows a little bit my previous work leading up to the new work that I've been making. But should I say something about the new work first?
Yeah, just so people kind of like have a sense of what.
Okay, so for those of you who know my work, I always photograph people, especially women, and it's all like really follows my very autobiographical personal life, and my girls. Mainly, I have 4 children, 2 boys as well, but my girls seem to inspire my work. And now that we've been quarantined for 8 weeks, I kind of got lucky to come up with a new idea for a project. The first 2 weeks I was editing my work and I organized my studios. It didn't look like that. And I started editing my work that I got the Guggenheim for, the She project, with hope to start working toward the book. And then one day I was literally standing at my kitchen sink. We have 5 young adults here and me and my husband, so we're 7 people. I seem to be in the kitchen a lot, and everybody is. And I was staring at my neighbor across both our yards, and she was in her kitchen, and she used to sit on like a bench and read there, and I thought that was so beautiful, and that I would love to photograph her. Ironically, I didn't, but she inspired this whole project where I could still make portraits, and it's just I have to change the way I'm working because of the situation. And I also teach a class at Mass Art, which is a portrait class, and the class went online, and we had to reorganize the whole course because everything that was in the syllabus kind of didn't happen anymore, and people had to adapt the work they were making to the situation. I kept telling all my students, you have to come up with work that speaks to you in this day and age. And I was saying this nonstop that I realized, oh my God, then I have to do that too. And it started a project, and I kind of just, and as I was editing my previous work, I started being interested in how much I had of this inside and outside, so many inside outside images that I started posting on Instagram. And one of them specifically, there was a young a girl actually behind the window with her hand on the window. So I put it up and say, I'm going to start this project. If anybody's interested, please text me as long as it's like driving distance from Boston. And I got a very large response, which was pretty incredible. So I went ahead and bought a digital camera because I always worked with film before. And there's such an immediacy to this work that I realized I have to shoot that digital. Because I don't want to see the film in 3 months and work. It's like it has to happen now. So the whole thing was such a novelty for me. And despite the unfortunate situation everybody's in right now, I kept trying to see the silver lining in it. And I started making work. And now I'm a little overwhelmed, actually. I had to make a long Excel sheet with people and the addresses and organize them by location so that I'm not just driving back and forth all over the place.
Wow. Well, you know, I'm excited to see a little bit of what came before it, because one of the things that's really struck me about this project when when you started putting some of the images on Instagram is it just had so much. I saw elements from other projects that, you know, are little notes that you hit sometimes of, you know, you use a lot of kind of mirrors and reflection and windows and doorways and kind of play with covering and veiling and revealing, and I think that's been a really interesting theme that's been woven into your work, other projects, and that you've made a really amazing. You're using that so well, I think, for what we're all going through right now. So
well, thank you. It's been evolving. I feel like I'm honestly so grateful to everybody who is agreeing or reaching out to me to make this work, because I think we all crave that connection. I'm a people's person. I mean, and it's been really, I met extremely wonderful people. Many of them I hope to stay in touch with after that. And you know, all my work, as you're going to see, it's really based on this sense of intimacy.
Mm.
And here I had to learn, it's like, how do you get that intimacy despite working from across the glass and at a distance and screaming so people could hear me? And how do I get that? So it's been a learning experience for me, really, actually. And I think it's good as artists to always kind of challenge yourself, because you keep growing in some way. So it's been fun.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into looking at some of your images, I'm just going to welcome anyone who's just joining us. We are here with Rania Matar in her studio in Brookline and Massachusetts. And welcome, everyone. We're so excited to learn about her work in general, but also this new project she has about portraiture from afar. And cheers to anyone joining us. Lovely to share this happy hour with you. So Rania, we would love to see some images if you would.
Okay, so just I'm putting like 4 or 5 images from different projects till we get to that, just to put it in the context.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that'd be great, so people can see how
like
the trajectory of where your work.
And okay, here we go. I'm hoping this is going to work right. Okay, here we go. I'm not able to move it. Oh, here, sorry.
Fine.
Okay, so I became a photographer. Can you see it?
Can you go, I'm sorry, this is my fault. Can you go out of that for 1 second so I can adjust the screen on my end for what people can see? Yeah. Okay. Can you go back to it now? Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone.
It's okay. Share. Sorry, I don't know how. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so this is just a peek into the new work, but I'm going to go back. So I'm trained as an architect. I don't know how many people know my work or not, so I'm going to assume nobody knows anything, and I'm just going to show a little glimpse of different projects. So I'm trained as an architect, and I have 4 children, and my kids are very instrumental in all my work. I became a photographer because of my kids. I started taking photo workshops to take better pictures of my children. And over the years, my work kept evolving as my kids were growing. So originally when I was taking black and white photography, and we had to make a project every week, my projects were all like really my children. So, and it taught me quite a bit about seeing the beauty in these mundane moments and about working intimately um, with subjects. I'm always using a wide angle lens, so I'm very close to everybody I'm photographing. I'm really in the space with them. And it made me really appreciate all these moments at home where really not much was happening, but they were just beautiful. And if I didn't have the camera, I probably would not have noticed how incredible that moment was. So I'm going to move on and show the rest. But the reason I always start with this work is because it truly taught me to fall in love with, first with photography, second with these moments that where not much is happening, but realize how beautiful they are. And when I started, eventually in 2000, I'm going to go back one more time. I'm sorry about that. When I started photographing in the Middle East, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm losing my arrows here. When I started photographing in the Middle East, I went to a Palestinian refugee camp with a cousin of mine. And the first time I showed my work to somebody, I showed pictures of my kids and then pictures in the refugee camps. And I remember I was at Review Santa Fe and somebody telling me, you need to have that same intimacy with all the pictures you make as the pictures of your kids. It's probably one of the best advices anybody ever gave me. And so I hope it stayed. Eventually, I never went back to architecture after September 11 with the whole rhetoric of them versus us and me being a Lebanese, a Palestinian, an American, and having to come to terms with my whole sense of identity, I decided to photograph in the Middle East. And before I knew it, I was just, I guess, a photographer. So I photographed quite a bit between 2002 and 2008. And this work became a book that I titled Ordinary Lives. Some of the images you've been seeing, the last two, were taken after the war of 2006 between Israel and Hezbollah, when I went to photograph the aftermath. I was stuck in that war with my children and escaped via Damascus and decided that it was an important story to tell. So I went back when things were safe and photographed the aftermath. At some point I realized that in all my work, I was drawn to the women and the children. My whole sense of motherhood, I guess, was always this unifier with all the women I was photographing. And another time I remember showing the work and I was saying, I photograph in the Middle East, and somebody asking me, where are the men in your pictures? And it made me think quite a bit. And I'm like, I'm not commissioned to do this work. I'm doing work that I want to make, and I have this access to the women, and I'm so inspired by those women. So I decided that I'm going to own it. And it's kind of stayed consistent through my work, maybe till this project now, where I'm still mainly focusing on women, but there are men who are kind of appearing in there.
Their way in.
So the work of Ordinary Lives ended up being part of many projects, and part of it, I became interested in the sense of the veil. When I grew up in Lebanon, I hardly ever saw women wearing the veil. And after September 11, again, with the rhetoric of you're with us or against us, it seems like many women became politicized, and the veil had all these layers. But the whole sense of head covering became interesting to me. Like here, actually, the only woman who's not covering her head is the one who's covering her face. But then I started working with the whole idea of the nuns as well, because there's a very large Christian community in Lebanon, and these are nuns and Greek Orthodox nuns at church. And I exhibited this work at the ICA in Boston in 2008, and with the curator, we ended up mixing the pictures of the nuns with the pictures of the women covered in black, and it started. Why is one okay and what's not okay? So it became this whole idea of how do you play with what the head covering is. So this is a Greek Orthodox nun in a convent as well in Lebanon. When this work got published and my daughter was 15, I was ready to work closer to home, and I started photographing teenage girls in the US first, in Massachusetts. And at some point I realized that I was exactly those young women so many years earlier. So I decided to start photographing in Lebanon and the Palestinian refugee camps as well. So the work, even though it's not meant to be political, is focusing on women in the space that they're living in. For me, the whole idea of the universality of being a woman and the shared humanity became very important. Like even in a refugee camp where a girl might not have her own bedroom and she has to share a room with everybody, there's like a wall behind her that became hers to personalize. Or like, so this is in Boston as well, actually. And again, in all of those, there's this duality of being a child and becoming an adult that's present, and it's important because that's really what these girls are going through. So she has all these pictures on the walls, but she still has her stuffed animals and you know, her farm animal sheets. I don't know. Are you seeing my mouse when I move it?
Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna put it away then. Sorry about that. Okay. And then this became the cover of my book, and this is in Lebanon, and I love it that it throws people off. So this picture was part of the exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts, which was titled She Who Tells the Story, Women Photographers from Iran and the Arab World. And people would come and ask the curator, Kristen Gresh, we thought you're only showing Arab women. And she would tell them, I am only showing Arab women. And people would get into an argument with her that that's not possible. And for me, that's important to shatter the stereotypes a little bit. I mean, I mean, when you see the picture big, the only thing you have is like her bracelet says her name in Arabic.
And Rania, we actually have a question coming in about these images, which is, do you pose your subjects or allow them to move in the space? So I think they're asking how much is posed versus kind of capturing just...
You know, this work became very collaborative. So the earlier work, the black and white, I was disappearing and just catching the moment. And I'm still shooting the same way, but I am just one person with the young woman in her bedroom. So it becomes very collaborative. So at first I kind of follow their leads, and then I start bringing my own question to her maybe. So it becomes this back and forth relationship, like especially it's just a good question at the same time as this image is here. Because here I was working in a room where there was hardly any lighting. I don't use a tripod. I don't use any extra light. So it's just me with my handheld camera. And the room was pretty dark. And so I wasn't sure what to do with it. And then she was telling me, I have my sunglasses. Do you mind if I wear them? I'm like, absolutely not. Why don't you wear your sunglasses? So when she put the sunglasses, I'm like, well, let's go to the window then. And so there's this kind of conversation that happens. But then once she sat, this is 100% her. I don't tell her, put your leg up or do that. It's about her. So I don't know if that makes sense a little bit.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, and this one, for example, here, this is a shoot. I was done. I thought I was done with the shoot before I made that picture, I have to say. And I was packing my bags and I was so excited because I had so many great images, I thought. And then she asked me, do you mind if we make a couple more images with the clothes that I made myself? I'm like, I would love that. So this is a gift she gave me after I thought I was done with the shoot. So I think it's important to have this dialogue and to make people comfortable so that they could express their own desires. And I think this is how you really get, I think, a better, more intimate image, where it's that there's this communication happening and this trust established as well. And here again, I mean, this is an image where there was nothing in her room and she was so interesting and I couldn't put it together. And then she said, I express myself in my sketchbook. I'm like, okay, then do you want to bring your sketchbook? So this is in Lebanon. She put her sketchbook down, and then, so I was like, okay, let's put the book. Do you want to lie down next to the sketchbook? And then she said, can I wear the shirt that I wear when I make self-portraits? So it's again a gift that she gave me, you know. So it's important to let people be comfortable to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna move. I'm kind of skipping a project because here this is part of two projects. I did a project called L'Enfant Femme, which the picture on the left is part of. When I started photographing girls, they were the ages of my younger daughter, right pre-puberty, when the body started to change and the attitude changes, but they're still little girls. And so I became fascinated with the whole sense of, again, of growing up and of transitions. And here the only instruction I would give the girls is not to smile, and I kind of let them pose themselves. And these are girls who are growing up with a selfie, with the immediacy of the iPhone pictures, and I'm shooting medium format film, and I'm asking them not to smile, and they cannot see the back of my camera, so they have to really think about what to do with their body and their limbs. So in the next few images, the picture on the left is part of my series of L'Enfant Femme, but then I started following some of the girls and photographing them 3 years later. And some of them now, I have a third that hasn't made it here, but I'm still trying to follow some of them over the years. So for example, here she was, I think, 12, and then here she's 16, and here she's 10, and then 14. And this is very much about the subtleties of what the body language, what the hands are doing, the tilt of the heads. And this is Lavinia at 13 and then 15 here, but her parents bought the picture, and it's actually fantastic that they put it there. And I actually just went and photographed her from the window this past weekend, so I could peek in the window, and now they bought this picture, and it's actually sitting right here. So now I need to go make a third with her and her 2 photographs. This is a young woman I photographed very often over the years, and her name is Samira, and she's in a Palestinian refugee camp, and she's going to appear a couple of times again in this in those images. So again, the work is personal. When my daughter was leaving, when my twins, actually my oldest kids, were leaving for college, I was realizing how my role as a mother was changing, how if my daughters are growing up means I'm also growing older, and I turned it into a photo project. And again, on the other hand, I lost my mother at the age of 3, so I'm experiencing that whole relationship firsthand. And so I started photographing mothers and daughters in the similar age brackets as my own. And this is one picture, not 2. So this is a corner of a wall, and the daughter's on one side of it and the mom on the other. This kind of became the signature of the project for me, because they look identical, like almost 30 years apart. Like this is what the mother probably looked like, and this is what the daughter's gonna look like on some level. So this sense of time lapse happening a little bit. And you're talking about windows and mirrors, so here we are, and reflections.
Yeah.
So I'm just showing a couple of those. And this is the same young woman, Samira, in the refugee camp as well. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm just gonna say something quick about that image, because this is the different age bracket, I guess. And here, this is Huguette Callan, who's a very famous painter. And when I made that picture, she died a couple of months ago, unfortunately. But when I made that picture, she was no longer painting, but she was wearing her smock, and it made me very emotional. So I started crying as I was photographing them. And when I started crying, they both started crying. So the mother, who looked like she was in her own world, so I put my camera down. Actually, when everybody started crying, I thought, out of respect, I put my camera down. And the mother, who looked like she wasn't quite there, told me, "You're an artist, emotions are important, don't stop." So she actually gave me the gift of making that photograph. So I'm gonna move a little bit real quick to the project that I actually submitted for the Guggenheim and got the Guggenheim on. And again, the work is personal. And about 3 years ago, I was losing my hair. And I think you ladies remember that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see, my hair is so much part of who I am, and I became obsessed with hair and texture. At the same time, I was invited to do a residency in Ohio, and I fell in love at Kenyon College in rural Ohio, and I fell in love with the landscape there. And so I started making pictures of these young women in that landscape. And I started focusing more on that physicality and the texture. And again, it's metaphorically, these are, again, girls the ages of my young women, the ages of my own daughters. And this is when they left home. So now they're not anymore in the house, but they're out in the space where they're trying to make their own, which is a transitional space they found themselves in. So, and again, the sense of texture and hair in Lebanon, I started working as well with the sense of the headscarf and what that means. And this is Samira again with her sister.
I love that image. I love how the scarf and the hair kind of interweave.
Oh, this one. Yeah. Because everybody asks like, do you have to get veiled? Do everybody have to get veiled? And I'm like, no, one is veiled, the sister is not, and the sister doesn't want to get veiled, and she has this gorgeous hair that goes all the way down. So that became for me this kind of sense of, again, the intertwining. And again, this was like a gift. I met this young woman. I was in Miami with my daughter, and we were waiting in line to eat at a restaurant, and I was traveling back that same evening, and all I saw was the hair, and I like poked her on the back. I'm like, I would absolutely love to photograph you. She's like, okay. I'm like, but I need to go get my camera, and I'm leaving today, so we have to do it today. She's like, yeah, it's fine. So, and she's albino, she's black albino, she's very beautiful. And we really eventually built a relationship past that picture. The National Museum of Women in the Arts exhibited this photo in an exhibition titled Live Dangerously, and they bought the picture. And Raven went to Washington, D.C. to see her picture hanging. And, because I kept in touch with her, tell her that, and I was thanking her, and she kept saying, thank you for seeing the beauty in me. So that was very touching. And for me, I want the work to be very much about empowerment and very much collaboration in this work, probably even more than ever before. So, yeah, sorry.
You're still working on this project or shaping it at this point?
You know what? I was still working on it till I stopped because life stopped, right? So I was still, it kept evolving. Yes, I was still I was still, and it was nice. And because the first 2 weeks of the quarantine or isolation, it was the first time I really had the time to sit down and, spread all these prints on the floor in my studio and start seeing how the pictures are speaking to each other. And it was a nice pause, to do that before keep going with the work, right?
Yeah.
And again, this work includes in Lebanon. It started with the rural Ohio and about the texture, but in Lebanon, the texture very much, again, about this textured wall as well. This is Samira again. I like to end always with this picture because this was the first time I photographed her outside the refugee camp. And she asked me once, it's like, can we make pictures outside the refugee camp? I thought, absolutely. So it was a very special moment for both of us. Mm. This is Mia. And Mia was probably, she was one of the first people to volunteer to be photographed for this project. And I really didn't know what I was doing yet. So this kind of helped me kind of navigate a little bit, we'll have to work with the reflections. And I love it because, Mia and June both are performers, and there's a sense of like performing in this image. And the fact that with the red dress and the lipstick, it's not all the images are have as much of this performative aspect, but again, I want it to be collaborative. So this is, I don't know if you want to add something to it.
Yeah, no, it was such a, I've had, because I've known your work for so long, I've always been so curious to kind of be a fly on the wall when you're photographing and, see that process. So, this was like, totally that. And it, Rania, you have a very natural way of photographing. Something that was really interesting for me to observe is I felt like you kind of took in the scenery really quickly and kind of decided generally where you wanted to kind of frame things, and then really allowed us to kind of settle ourselves, and then you would give suggestions or not suggestions, but kind of feedback so that we understood what you were seeing. But one thing that I just thought was super interesting is, when I used to be a photographer, I was one of those photographers that had to shoot for like an hour to find what my picture actually was before I'm like, oh, there's the picture. And I was really impressed. I felt like you were able to kind of zero in on what you saw and what you wanted to get really quickly, and then already start polishing that as you're shooting. Whereas if it had been me, I would have been like,
well, you know what? I loved the green door. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then I remember you showing me a couple of dresses, and when all of a sudden I could see the red with the door, I'm like, the red.
right.
So it was
right. And
so you made it easy, I have to say. I cannot take all the credit for it.
oh, you made it easy. We just felt like we were kind of standing there, and then you made us look really magical.
Oh yeah, and I remember, I mean, this came up in the Globe. I remember Kate McQuaid asking me, it's like, you always photograph women, but I'm seeing men in these pictures. I'm like, yeah, they're starting to appear.
Well, June was really excited. He got to be in it. He's like, I can be in our Rania photo.
Well, he was great.
I feel like what you just observed gives me some insight, because I think of Rania as someone who's like mystifyingly prolific. Like you just output, and the quality is always, so good. And some people, everyone works at a different pace, but that makes a lot of sense that you are a sort of a fast decision maker and kind of a woman who knows what you want.
You know what though? It's not always. I mean, there are shoots though. I mean, it helped that I have to say they're on a second floor. That's the only place I could have photographed them.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, she's giving me more credit than I could get.
Well, I also know that you work extremely hard, and that's also part of why you're prolific.
Yeah.
Well, Rania, actually, that segues well into a question that someone's asking, which is, do you ever meet resistance when you ask to photograph someone, and do you ever find that discouraging? So we were just kind of talking about making decisions and how you interact with people. So
you know what though? If people say no, I'd rather they say no than have me go through the shoot and then have it not feel the chemistry happen, or else have them change their mind, like, oh, it's halfway through or something. So I want it to be fun for people who are being photographed. So if they don't want to be photographed, others will do. Others will want to. So I think nobody should ever feel discouraged if you ask somebody and they say no. There are so many people in the world and others who would say yes.
What do you do if you're doing a photo shoot though, and you feel like it just isn't flowing? Like, sometimes you feel like things, it's like someone is natural and you can, and then other times.
It happens a lot actually. And I think it's a very good exercise because, I mean, I learned to make the best of it. And sometimes I'm surprised that the pictures turn out better than I thought they would. So sometimes I go and I feel like, oh, this is not going to work right away. And then surprisingly it does. There's some elements or the way the light hits or some movement that happens. I'm like, oh my God, hold that. Something of sudden and something works typically.
Yeah. Well, we have.
Can I keep going though? Oh
yeah. Just to let you know, we have a viewer named Santiago who is 4 years old, and he would like you to know that that work is so cool.
Thank you, Santiago. I want to come photograph you if you're in Boston.
Anyone who's just
this is again this picture, one of the situations really, I have to say, this also, I mean, it took a while to get to see that, because as you see, that window looks like a mirror.
Yes.
I mean, it's reflecting the house behind me. So it was a challenge to find the one spot where I could see the woman, Marie, who was there. There was only one spot she could be. And it was a gift that the branches and the red was literally there. I mean, it was there that I actually had to ask her, do you have a red shirt? Because it was just it was such a beautiful spot to do that. But this is one of those moments where I thought it's not going to work. There's so much reflection that it's not going to work. And it worked beautifully, really.
Yeah, you found a way to, work with it. Yeah, I love that image, the layer.
So I'm going to just go through them unless people have questions. Again, it's like the reflections. I mean, I'm going to those places not knowing at all what to expect at all. I mean, people ask me if there's stage. I'm like, not at all. I can't even go to the house. I'm just, and this one, actually, I photographed the mother, the cat, and the brother and all this. And then I I've been adding a lot. I'm shooting a lot, but I'm not having time to edit the work. Every once in a while, I just want to make sure that I have pictures before I delete them on my hard drive, on my memory card. And if one stands out, I'm just like putting it on the side for now. But I need to go through all the images at some point. So it's kind of a little hard right now, because sometimes people it's like, oh, you don't like my image. I'm like, no, I just haven't looked at it yet. So I keep insisting that, you know, right now, this is hopefully temporary, the confinement and this isolation. So I'm trying to shoot as much as I can. So when this is over, I could actually edit the work.
Yeah,
Because that's very, hopefully a limited amount of time. It's not going to go on forever.
an interesting question that, you know, oh wow, that, you know, you don't have to answer at the moment, but maybe would be interesting to talk about at some point, which is, yeah, what will you do when the quarantine is over? Will you evolve this in some way, do you think, or just stop?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I think this is important for what it is. Probably when the quarantine's over, I'm going to sit and edit the work for one, because I'm a little overwhelmed with the amount of work I have that I haven't had time to really look at.
Yeah.
I think it taught me a lot. I mean, I might, even if I'm not working on this project, I might start weaving some of that into my own work. I realize how much I'm having fun working with reflections. I mean, there's something very interesting happening here, for example, in that photograph. I mean, the whole sense of inside and outside is getting so blurred. And it seems like if I move a little bit, I'm going to see myself overlapped on the person. So there's something very metaphorically that I'm thinking a lot about all of this right now, you know? Yeah. So I don't know if it affects my work. I don't know. I'm trying to live it in the moment at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, here at some point she was turning around to go get another shirt or something, and I'm like, oh my God, don't move, because she has this white hair, and all I could see was that. I'm like, I just want to see your hand. And she kind of just, I'm like, don't, hold it, and I'm screaming across the window.
You do anything with like walkie-talkie, cell phone?
Oh, you know what, there's a couple of times where I had a couple of people who don't hear very well, so we both had the phones open on speaker inside and outside. Wow. This is Kristen Gresh's daughter, the curator at the MFA.
That's beautiful.
And I photographed these young women many times over the years. So it was actually hard to have to go photograph them. They're identical twins, and every time I photograph them, they're always completely 100% intertwined. So, but it was hard, like I couldn't go say hello and hug them. I just had to stay back. But I love that we're able to make a picture despite the conditions we're in, you know?
Yeah.
So some of them I'm working with the screen and I'm keeping the distance and I have my mask. So
yes.
Okay, sorry.
No.
So we're almost done. I mean, again, I had
as you're take your time. There's some questions that maybe you can talk about as we see.
You want me to stop somewhere? Okay, should I go? I went too fast. Okay, here, ask me anything.
So one person is wondering kind of how much processing and cropping and kind of post-production, like after the shoot, you do in Photoshop.
You know, I don't do too much. I typically do what I would have done in a dark room, I want to say. With some of the windows, like I might try to bring out the eyes sometimes because there's so much reflection that I want to make the person pop a little more than other places. I mean, you know how if you work in the dark room, I would work on the making. I mean, I'm trained in black and white and making prints. I love to make a beautiful print. So I work on the image to make it where it should be beautiful.
Yes. No, that, yeah. And how many people have you photographed at this point, and how many like shoots are you doing?
A lot, actually. I don't know, probably like 75 or 80.
Oh my God.
I mean, I go out with my mask, my ladder is in the trunk of my car, so like people probably know me by now as the woman with the step ladder walking around town.
What do you think would be different if you weren't working, if you hadn't thought of this project, if you were just inside your studio all the time?
You know, you both know me enough, right? I mean, I would have gone crazy. But you know, something, I mean, I did use the first 2 weeks I was really editing my work. Then this project was coming into my mind and I was trying to start it getting organized, and I ordered a camera, but I like, you know, I don't know if you see those drawers behind me. I emptied everything through all.
Okay, let
I
me,
mean, it's important to have that time a little bit. So, and I think having those 3 weeks really gave me room to come up with a new idea to photograph. Another thing I'm working on the side, but and we started at day one of the quarantine. Right now, 3 of my 4 kids are here, and a niece and a nephew of my husband. So there are 5 young adults in the house. And since day one, we started making a portrait of every single one of them at the same time, at the same spot. So that is like, it's almost like a diary.
Mhm.
So if I wasn't working, but I was shooting film. So I got some of it developed. I have a stack this much. So I guess if I wasn't shooting, I'd be scanning my film.
I think you're one of the only people I know who could find a way to be like insanely busy, like in a very
No,
safe
I think
way.
many people are, though. I think the first 2-3 weeks, it was like life went on hold.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's finding a rhythm and trying. I mean, I see here, I mean, the 5 young adults at the house, everybody's kind of working now. I mean, we went through this phase where it was like on hold, like thinking it's just temporary and life is going to resume. And at some point you came to terms that this is kind of taking a little bit longer. So people moved on to something. I mean, you guys are coming up with those studio visits. I mean, everybody's doing different projects, I think, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. I think there's something about this to me that I don't know what it is.
It's very, but you know, but I would say something, because this work has really just, and I think the fact that I think it made us all also nicer people, because nobody's rushed all the time. I mean, that's the new thing for me, not to be rushed all the time. I mean, I was raising 4 kids, and I have a father in Lebanon, and I'm kind of doing my own work and teaching at Matar. And all of a sudden, it's like, bam, everything had to stop. I mean, I was going to be gone the whole month of April. One thing after the other got canceled. It's kind of nice a little bit, right?
Yeah, no.
I mean, for the wrong reasons. I don't want to say this is nice what's happening. Everybody's hurt in different ways, but there's a silver lining in it. So people are, I'm so grateful how people are giving me the time, because I'm not just going there and snapping a picture. I'm making it a photo shoot. Like, I'm spending a good hour with everybody. And somehow we're communicating. I mean, this was a perfect example. I mean, this is Sally, who I met. I mean, she lived in Hingham. She connected me with all her neighbors. I went there. She had a ladder for me, and because her window was way high, this would have been interesting for you to see me, Mia, there. I was literally on top of a ladder there. So people are investing into this. I could not have done that without them. And I'm often walking out with like little things and like chocolate, or the people leave outside because you cannot give it. There's no handing things, you know?
Actually, we have some really lovely questions about photography and connection. So,
okay. Should I stop here, or okay? Or stop on this one? Okay.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so this is a lovely question. A lot of times putting a camera between yourself and another person creates distance, but you seem to make it bring you closer to your subjects. Can you talk a little bit about photography as connection, especially in this series during quarantine?
It is a very good question. You know, it's kind of interesting, because the relationship that's being built through that connection we're doing is literally through photography. I'm going there to photograph them. And the thing is, I don't talk as I photograph, but I put the camera down quite a bit, and we do have conversations. I mean, so there's the back and forth that happens. So I don't like to talk as I'm shooting, because I'm focused and I want the person to be focused, but I put the camera down and we do talk a lot. And I try to be very encouraging as I'm photographing, like, oh my God. And I mean it so much as I'm saying, I'm like, oh my God, this looks so good. Can you please hold that or whatever? So there's a validation that happens, I guess.
Yeah.
I see it more as it's connecting us in some way, because the relationship is based on that. I mean, I'm not just going there. I mean, you know what? Does that make sense?
No, it does. And actually I think that relates well to one other question that actually segues into this. It says, do you feel that the distance from people you want to connect with have changed the way you shoot?
You know, I'm still shooting, by the way, at the same distance I always shot. I don't use a zoom lens, and I'm using a wide angle lens.
Right. There's always a barrier.
There's a barrier, but it's not changing the way I shoot. The only thing that's changing is I often would go and like literally touch people's hair, or, I mean, I tend to be a tactile person. I would literally maybe touch the hair or move the hair or tell them, you know, and that's now I'm able to communicate. I mean, sometimes they don't even hear me. I have to just do this or a little bit like this or whatever. So it's changing maybe the way I communicate with them, but it's not really changing the way I shoot.
Yeah.
It's been helping me grow in a way that it's not less, there's a layer here of complexity that's happening that I'm liking, actually. This whole sense of the reflections are coming in and outside. So it's making the portrait a little maybe less obvious, I want to say, or something, you know, but I'm still working in the same way I worked. Yeah. And I always tell my students to just, I can't, I mean, I have a fixed lens. I don't fiddle around with zoom at all. It confuses me.
Yeah. Well, you know, I wonder, one thing that you said that was so interesting was that, you know, people's timing is different now. Like they just have the time, you know, and that is something that feels so different. I noticed myself just being able to like cook.
I mean, I photograph people. It usually is like, do you mind if we organize a shoot, and we might have it in the calendar for like 3 weeks from now.
Right.
And now it's like, yeah, come tomorrow. What time is good for you? And it's kind of, this is why I've been so busy, because I'm not used to having people just say, oh yeah, we're flexible. I mean, I'm just working between Zoom meetings.
Yeah. Well, and do you think maybe that sense of timing too is,
sorry?
Do you think perhaps feeling that people aren't in a rush is allowing you to, I mean, you are photographing the way you normally photograph, but you were saying you feel like these are more complex. I wonder if almost just like the slower timing of everything is allowing that to kind of percolate through, or to, I don't know. It's everything.
I don't know. I never rushed my shoots though, which is why it was hard to schedule them, because I always told people to give it at least an hour and a half.
Right.
So, but now I'm not spending an hour and a half, because I'm spending maybe about 45 minutes to an hour, because I don't have the luxury of the endless places we could go. I mean, it's just literally, the location is limited. Sometimes even the location within the window is limited because of the reflections as well.
That makes a lot of sense.
There's a certain freedom in that, in all the limitations and parameters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good exercise for me to work with that, right? This is what I'm saying. It's like I go somewhere and I'm working with what's there, and it has to work somehow. I mean, I owe it to people I'm photographing to at least not leave thinking, oh my God, that was a waste, right? I'm not going to use all the images, but I hope I have something, you know, to show for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh.
She's somebody I photographed a lot. That's Natalie. I don't know if she's on. I hope they see that. I'm going to send it to them. I photographed her many, many times, and then we always have this kind of photographic collaboration. So again, it was hard to do it from far, and here's with the screen. What's interesting is this kind of happened. That's her friend who was staying over. She's quarantining with them, and she's on a stair, and she was about to lean down, and I saw this. I'm like, oh no, please stay there. So I did the whole shoot with with that young woman with her dress like that. I thought it was just beautiful. Mm. Okay, and I think that's kind of almost what I have. Yeah. That was a very hard shoot, because as you see, it's it was literally like a mirror. There was nothing where I could see her, almost see the kid Lucy. And at the end, it was like, oh my God, if she lays down, it's the only place I could see. So I asked her to lay down. The rest is all hers, you know?
I love that body language, though. It
and her fingers. I mean, what she did with her fingers, right? And this is actually the mom of a friend of mine who's a photographer. Again, this was maybe one of the few shots through a screen and a window, and somehow the screen helped diffuse a little bit. There was something very beautiful about what the light came through.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think so anyway, I was immensely honored. I've been posting here and there some of those on Instagram, mainly to keep finding people to photograph, and it got picked up by the Boston Globe, which has been great. And so I get a message from Kate McQuaid, like, I'd like to interview you, and, you know, and it was that. And then last Friday morning, I come down, we get the Globe at the house, and my husband's like, oh my God, look, he opened it for me. I'm like, oh my God, I got like a spread of a page and a half, which is pretty unbelievable. Like, usually send few images and they might pick one with it somewhere hidden, and all of a sudden it was like that, which was great. And I love that they used the image that June took of us, Mia.
Yes, me too.
Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it gives a nice little it lets you, I don't know, all right, let me put it this way. You have this way of framing all of these windows and that in such a magical manner that it looks like this beautiful world. And then I think when you suddenly knock on that door, it's like, actually, that's my like grungy back door. And
I should keep that. Many of the people are photographing me from the other side, and I should put them all in a folder because it's kind of funny. I mean, it looks like I know what I'm doing. And I'm surprised I haven't broken a limb yet, because I have like one leg on something, the other leg on something, and I'm like this. So anyway, I just put that one today because I usually take forever to work to I never edit the day off, but I just wanted to put one in because it was her idea to just open the window and wear the mask. And I'm surprised that that's the first time I did that, actually. And I guess maybe this is eventually what's going to be the next phase, is that we kind of will get out, but we can't even see each other's faces. There's always that barrier, but instead of being a window or a screen, it's a mask somehow. Yeah. So I thought it was, so I'm ending this with that.
This kind of grounds the project as a record of the time, of this time. If you think about looking at this project 10 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
A bit of history, and you sort of remember all the things that came with it when you see the mask. It's a symbol.
Yeah. And in many of them, that's what's interesting. I'm finding, the flowers are on the inside, because, so it's kind of, there's another layer of that's happening. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. Unless you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer anything. I hope that was good.
Oh, that was so lovely. No,
we've probably used most of our time because it's so fun.
Do you want me to stop sharing the screen?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we can all be on here for a second. Wonderful. So yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, just one comment. I love the language that you use. I think I heard you say 4 times. That was a gift. She gave me. That was a gift she gave me. The way you see people and the way that you interact with them. You're looking to bring out something real in them and something that sort of honors them, and you also feel like they're giving gifts to you. I think this sense of exchange, everyone picks up on it when they look at your images. And
thank you.
And especially right now, the desire to connect, I think just a portrait can give you that experience even with a stranger. So you're, not to be overly congratulatory, but your images are gifts to us.
Thank you. That's so nice to hear. I mean, it's been, I don't know. I think people are craving connection. So like, I'm realizing honestly, like I'm here. I mean, I don't know where it is. I tried to clean behind me because I have all the little things that people were giving me. I mean, it was nice. I'm here. I mean, this is one of them. Like I'm walking out with like little chocolate, I'm so touched. I mean, I'm not asking for anything. I'm taking their time. I mean, I'm hoping at some point I'm going to be organized, make everybody a print.
No, I mean, I think that your images do, I don't know, I feel like when I'm looking at one of your images, I'm kind of calmly sitting in the room with that person. Yeah.
That's nice
And
to hear. Thank you.
it's no, but it's so lovely. Like you don't feel like as the viewer that you are invasive. I don't feel like your images are, showing them in some way, like revealing something that is so, I mean, it feels intimate, but it doesn't feel like you're taking some private moment that,
Okay. Yeah.
people wouldn't want to see. And so I always feel like somehow like I'm in the room there with that person, kind of in their emotional space in this very gentle, genuine way that is so lovely. And I think that is what we all miss right now. And actually one other thing is that when we are in physical space, when we share physical space with people now, other than those that we're quarantining with, like when you go to the store or even walk down a sidewalk, you don't,
With people.
you feel anxious,
It's sad.
sharing
It's sad.
physical space with someone, unfortunately, but there's
Yeah.
this worry about not being too close.
I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm excited about this work, because what we're living is very sad. I mean, if you think about it, what we're living is just not normal, that I have just to connect with people through a barrier. I mean, it's been rewarding for me to connect with people, and I realize everybody's craving connections, which is why I'm getting more people willing to be photographed than I ever did. But it's not normal that we're like physical people, and
But yeah, I agree. I do think though that's why it as Lisa said, it is a gift for the viewer to kind of to get something that right now doesn't feel.
Yeah. But thank you for being part of it.
Oh man,
Are there more questions, or?
Let's see. I think we are mostly. I think we're good. Just to give people a couple things to know about. So we have, kids programming is something that's very important to us at the FAR and at Pictura Gallery. So our creative director, Daniela, has a really lovely series of things going. I know parents right now are trying to figure out how to engage their kids, nice creative things that you can do with them. So Daniela's put together, if you go to thefar.org, you'll see this, but she's created a template of a window that you can download and print, and you can have a drawing session with your kid and draw what you see in your windows. And
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's based off of Rania's, inspired by Rania, and there's material there and suggestions. One thing we are doing at Pictura right now, since we can't have our regular exhibitions, is we are taking submissions from our younger artists. So any age, 12 and under, I think even, basically teenagers. We've had some great 2-year-old art. Anything, we have a submissions page. Our upcoming gallery opening on June 5th, which will be a virtual gallery opening. We'll show all the work. Any kids that would like to have your work on a gallery wall, please mail it, email it to us, send it in the mail. The information's there. But if you want to draw a window and send it, you can have it up in the gallery. And the last thing is that tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Daniela and her son are going to be doing a little drawing session on our Instagram live for Pictura Gallery, doing some window drawings based off of Rania's work. So thank you, Rania, for
Thank you. See, everybody's keeping busy. So.
Yeah. So anyway, again, I'm Mia Dalglish. We have Lisa Woodward here. We're the co-curators at Pictura Gallery, and it has been such an honor to be talking with Rania Matar from her home in Brookline, Massachusetts. And Thank you for the time. Cheers to all of you out there.
I didn't drink it. I was gonna.
You can drink it all now.
Now I can drink it. Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.